Are we on? Yeah, we're on. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm Mac, and I'm coming to you pre-recorded using Screener. So, without any further ado, I want to talk to you a little bit about my problem of practice and the solution that I and we have come up with during this process. So, my problem stems around our independent reading program. And it's a program that I inherited when I came here last year. I just finished my first year at Fessenden, and I teach 5th grade English. So, the way our curriculum is designed in 5th grade, we have a reading social studies class, and then we have English class, which traditionally, at least in the last few years since it was structured this way, English has really been a writing class. So when the independent reading program fell into my lap, I wasn't really quite sure what to make of it, but I saw very quickly what I had, and I'll show you. Actually, before I get to that, I'll tell you what actually I was given, and it worked like this. The boys picked a book. We're an all-boys school. The boys picked a book of their choice, and every night they would read for 20 to 30 minutes. And then they would have a sheet of paper that they would write a 2 to 3 sentence summary. They'd have their parents signing it, acknowledging that they read, and that would be it. At the end of the week or a couple of weeks, the teacher would collect those sheets and basically just check off, yes, you've read. So that's what I was given. Without much time to prepare, and certainly without this class, last year I changed it to look something like this. So the boys still chose a book, and it was almost always a fiction book, young adult fiction or juvenile fiction, a lot of series. And instead of filling out that sheet, I did bring it online last year, which really, if I'm thinking about the SAMR model, it was maybe just an augmentation. So what they did is they read for 20 to 30 minutes, and then they would go to a Google form that was on the website, and they had, I think there's 13 options that they would select one, and they had to rotate through them, and they could choose any of these options as long as they didn't repeat before they answered every one. So there is a describe the setting of the book, but there's also things like compare this book to others, or select one character from the book that you can really relate to and explain why and how. Write a letter to the author. So there was more variety, and at first this was great. The kids responded well. They liked being on their Chromebooks, which each one of our students, we have a one-to-one Chromebook program starting in 5th grade through 9th grade. So this was initially met with a lot of positive feedback, and it continued throughout the year. This is what we did, but by November, December, certainly by 2015, it had become just as redundant and mundane and sort of a drag for the kids as the previous independent reading program. So it really just became more busy work for them. And in truth, some days when I felt we had to assign homework every night, and some days this was it. It was busy work, and I wasn't into it, the kids weren't into it, and I think above all, they could tell, it wasn't something I was really crazy about. So, I brought my problem of practice into this class at Leslie, and, well, first, here's sort of a summation of what, my kids felt like, certainly looked like sometimes. So, the solution, with the help of my Leslie friends and classmates. Phase 1 was to turn the writing prompts into conversations. We had some success last year with small reading groups. That's another thing that I established. And the literary discussions that we had in class were awesome. So I started thinking, how can I duplicate or replicate those conversations on a consistent basis throughout the year, but without taking up class time? Because that's one thing small reading groups did, is they took up a ton of class time. And the whole unit for 4 weeks was devoted to, we had 3 separate books going on and small discussions. And it was great. It was really enriching. I heard some really profound things coming out of these conversations. But again, um, I wanted to replace that time that they spent doing the independent reading and those summary responses. I wanted to take that out and put in these discussions. So I started thinking, well, this can happen online. The other phase that came about just after, that sort of online thinking that I had was expanding the definition of literacy. And in a 21st century, time and place, literacy is much more evolved and much more widespread and diverse than what it used to be, and what I think our school still kind of resorts to, and that's this idea that we read books, we read classical literature, we read contemporary literature, but we read, um, and we respond to it. So these were the two things. Let's bring this online and let's expand literacy. And the way to do that, I discovered, was going to be through Google Groups. So bring the conversations online. It dawned on me that one of the keys to being a 21st century literate person is being an active participant, right? And how we use the internet, how we disseminate information, how we filter it, and becoming an active participant and not what we probably are the vast majority of the time, which is a passive consumer. So if I can start teaching our fifth graders at that age to play an active role, then I think they're well on their way to being a much more literate young person than they are prior to coming into fifth grade. The other thing about Google Groups is the practicality. By creating forums for these online discussions to happen, again, there's that time and space that the half an hour every night that they were reading and writing a summary, or in that Google form. Now that time is being assigned for these discussions to happen in these forums and these message threads. And what is more, instead of just sort of an independent cursory thing that each student is doing, now they're working with each other. Now they're collaborating. So there's that practical side, but the content of that time and how it's used is much, much richer. And then there's collaboration and problem solving, like I guess I wrote. And the third piece is the student engagement. So, I did a little survey when this course started. I emailed all our students and all our parents, and the feedback was consistent. Kids just lost steam, and they weren't engaged, and neither was I. And I think we all know that if our heart's not into something, we can't expect the kids to be. So the student engagement piece was key, and a lot of that has to do with centering it right around the student experience and making this their own sort of animal or beast. So I think this happening, in the first half of the year, building these skills, right? Like how do we post in a message board? What sort of a space is it? Well, it's public space, really, and what does that mean? And what does the content of our threads need to be? And how do we know that something has already been posted over here so we don't duplicate it here, and sort of navigating all that. So that's the first half of the year, right? Really the first month is learning how to use a message board. And I really love Google Groups because the message board format is just so ubiquitous. Kids are going to encounter that a lot, and they're going to choose to sign up for forums and threads as they get out of school, both in and out of school. So that first month or so, we teach those skills. Then we start touching on different literacies. And so the literacies that I've established, at least to start, and this can always change, there's the traditional text, because I can't just take away. I think I need to add, and I think I still need to pay credence to the things that we've already done. So the first literacy is fiction literacy, and that's what we'll start with when we teach how to use Google Groups. Then the second one that I plan on introducing is current events and nonfiction. Um, and I got a lot of great resources out there, Newsella, Wonderopolis, um, things like that to not just read fiction literature anymore, but read about current events and respond in the same way. So the same sort of the pattern is the same. You focus and immerse, a student focuses and immerses himself in that particular genre for 20 or 30 minutes a night. And then they respond in the appropriate forum. So the first one's fiction, the second one, nonfiction and current events. And from there, we have digital media. We have sort of a narrowed computer coding literacy and an art literacy. So all told, 5 literacies now that we're addressing. And there are many, many more, but I'm trying hard not to bite off more than I can chew, and I might well have. But we'll target 5 this year and see how it goes. And so the first half of the year is really spent hitting all those literacies, all 5 of them. The second half of the year, my hope and dream would be once we've covered our bases, kids can really branch out on their own and develop their own independent project where they do a deep dive into one of the literacies. And here's the thing that I love. I know and expect that they might focus on digital media literacy, for instance. I want to do a project, Mr. Jackson, on digital media, and I want to create this video. I think they'll find that the other literacies blend in with it much more than they might initially think. As they're designing a video, they might realize, well, I'm focused on aesthetics right now, so this is really kind of an art literacy conversation. Maybe I should go over to that forum and see what people are saying about this problem with layout that I have, or how to make something appealing to the eye. I don't know. I'm just sort of spitballing, but again, like the stick with digital media, they might discover that the content of their video is current events related. So I love that idea that these aren't taught in isolation, that they all blend together. And the big umbrella, which I'll get to, is sort of the computer literacy and the digital citizenship that's happening throughout. So next slide.